10 tips for a cybersecurity vendor assessment. What's a third party vendor assessment and why is it important to your company? Well, it's a review of the vendor security. It's not just a checklist, it's a strategic process to ensure that any company you partner with meets your security and compliance standards. There's an old saying the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. A vendor with poor security is a direct threat to your business. This is why a third party assessment is your first line of defense against supply chain attacks. It's a legal and reputational shield. Beyond preventing hacks, these assessments are often a legal requirement. They prove to regulators that you're taking due diligence seriously, which can protect you from fines and legal action in cases of a breach. Why does it matter, you may ask, and what's the impact? Well, the why is you don't have direct control over a third party environment. This assessment gives you a window into their practices, allowing you to identify and manage risk you cannot see or own. The impact without a thorough assessment, you're essentially outsourcing your risk without any control. A single vendor breach can lead to a massive data leak for your company, causing financial ruin, loss of customer trust, and long term brand damage. So, who's responsible for ensuring it gets done? It's a team sport. While the IT and security teams handle the technical part, the responsibility for third party risk management is shared across the entire organization. The CEO role and other C level executives set the tone. They must champion a security first culture and allocate the budget for proper vendor assessments. The legal and procurement teams, they are the gatekeepers. They should ensure that every contract includes clear security clauses and a requirement for security assessment before a vendor is onboarded. The business unit owner. The department that wants to use the vendor is responsible for providing critical context about the data the vendor will be accessing and the services it will provide. So, why does it matter? And what's the impact? Again, the why silos are a major vulnerability. If security assessments are the only done by the IT team, the business goals and risk associated with the vendor might be overlooked, leading to a false sense of security. More eyes, better results. The impact when responsibility is not clearly defined, it often falls through the cracks. This can result in vendor being onboarded without proper vetting, creating an immediate and unmanaged risk to the entire organization. So we talk about categorizing and defining your scope. So you want to define your assessment scope. The depth of your inquiry should match the vendor's risk tier. And I'll say that again. The depth of your inquiry should match the vendor's risk tier. A low risk vendor doesn't need to spend days filling out a comprehensive questionnaire, and you won't want to waste the time reviewing irrelevant information. However, a high risk vendor you want to be a little bit more comprehensive with and ensure that you're dotting your I's and checking your T's. A tailored scope makes the assessment process more efficient for both you and your vendors, encouraging both cooperation and faster onboarding times. Categorize your vendor by the risk level, as we just mentioned, right? Not all vendors are created equally. Classify them based on their access to your sensitive data and their business criticality. Why does it matter? Because this allows you to allocate your limited resources efficiently. A vendor with access to your entire network needs a more rigorous assessment than one who only provides office supplies. You can't perform a deep dive on every single vendor. Tiering ensures you focus your time and effort on the relationships that pose the greatest threat to your business. Start with foundational questions. It's very important. These are non negotiable. They cover basic security governance and compliance. They serve as an initial filter. If a vendor can't demonstrate a basic security policy or incident response plan, they may not be a suitable partner. Quickly, it'll eliminate those vendors who lack fundamental security practices, saving you from a high risk relationship. You'll also want to add technical and data protection questions. Those are very critical. Get into the weeds on how they handle and protect your data. This is where you verify their security claims. This reveals the true strength of their security controls, asking about encryption, access management, and data handling policies help you confirm they're using modern safeguards. And it also helps directly mitigates the risk of data breach. A vendor who encrypts data to transit and at rest is a far safer partner than one who doesn't. You want to take a look at access to their physical and environmental processes and their security. A breach can start with a physical security lapse just as easily as a cyber one. If your vendor stores physical data or has data centers, their physical security controls are part of your security chain. Preventing them and making sure that they have preventions for physical intrusions that could lead to a data theft or destruction is critical. You also want to evaluate their business continuity and disaster recovery plans. What happens when they go down? What happens if there's a natural disaster? Your vendor's ability to recover from a disaster directly impacts your ability to control operations. If they go down for days, how does that impact your operations? You need to ask that question. It's a critical one. Why does it matter, right? A vendor's outage could bring your business to a halt. Accessing their BPC, right, their business continuity plan, or their disaster recovery plan ensures that you can get back on your feet quickly. Minimizes your business disruptions and financial losses from a vendor related to service outages. Most importantly, request supporting documentation. You always have to trust but verify. Don't take a vendor's word for it. Trust but verify, I'll say it again. I've used that many, many times in my business. Why does it matter? Because documentation like an SOC2 report or a penetration test report provides a third party independent validation of their security posture. It reduces the risk of a vendor misrepresenting their security. You get verifiable proof of their controls. You also want to make sure that you implement a risk scoring system. Using a scoring system to quantify risk makes it easier to compare vendors and prioritize follow up actions. A numerical score provides a consistent, objective measure of that risk. It removes the guesswork and subjectively from the assessment process, and it allows for a clear, data driven approach to vendor risk. Establish a remediation and review process. This is not just about the checklist. The checklist is a diagnostic tool, not a final solution. If you find a security gap, you need a plan to fix it, and you need to categorize it, and you need to document it. You may not find a perfect vendor. A remediation plan allows you to work with the vendor to improve their security to meet your standards and your needs. It turns a negative finding into a positive outcome, strengthening your supply chain instead of just avoiding a vendor. And make it a living document. The cybersecurity threat landscape is constantly changing, so your checklist must evolve with it. It's not a one and done. Don't just put it aside, dedicate to it. Review it, I say quarterly, but at least annually, and update anytime there are changes to that security vendor's posture. A checklist from 2 years ago may not account for new threats like AI driven attacks or new regulatory requirements. Ensure your vendor risk management program stays relevant, effective, and capable of protecting your business from emerging threats. Thank you. and we welcome you to ask any questions.